There's something about unexplored islands that makes the imagination run wild. Maybe it's the eerie silence, the untouched landscapes, or the fact that some places on Earth remain fully off limits for reasons no one wants to talk about. Sure, we've mapped most of the world, but that doesn't mean we've figured it all out. Some islands hide deadly curses, lost civilizations, or disappearances that can't be explained. Others are so dangerous that stepping foot on them is basically signing your own death warrant. So, let's take a look at 15 unexplored islands with deadly dark secrets that you definitely won't find on any tourist brochures or travel websites. Number 15. Gruinard Island. At first, Gruinard Island looks like any other quiet, uninhabited patch of land off the Scottish coast. But as they say, don't believe anything that you see. Sometimes the truth is weirder than the fiction. For decades, it was one of the deadliest places on Earth. During World War II, British scientists tested anthrax as a biological weapon here, and let's just say they overachieved. They released the spores on local sheep. Every single one was dead within days. The contamination was so extreme that stepping onto the island was a death sentence. For years, it was known as Anthrax Island, with ominous warning signs keeping people away. The UK government finally tried to clean it up in 1990, dousing the soil with 280 tons of formaldehyde. Now they claim it's totally safe. But let's be honest, who's willing to test that theory? The island is still deserted, and most people won't go near it. Just because you can visit doesn't mean you should visit it. Number 14. Sable Island. Sable Island, a lonely crescent of sand 300 kilometers off Canada's coast, might look peaceful, but it's anything but. Dubbed the graveyard of the Atlantic, this shifting sandbank has claimed over 350 shipwrecks thanks to its treacherous currents, unpredictable storms, and ever-moving coastline. Even today, modern navigation struggles to keep ships from running aground. But the wrecks aren't the only mystery. Hundreds of wild horses roam the island, and their origins are still debated. Some believe they're descendants of shipwrecked animals, while others think settlers abandoned them centuries ago. Whatever the truth, these horses have adapted to survive, thriving despite harsh winters and a complete lack of freshwater lakes. Few people ever set foot on Sable. Only a handful of researchers and weather station workers brave its isolation. Here, nature calls the shots, and humans are never truly welcome. Number 13. Tristan da Cunha. If you think your hometown is remote, meet Tristan da Cunha, the most isolated inhabited island on Earth. And you can Google it. Smack in the middle of the South Atlantic, the closest landmass is over 2,400 kilometers away. There are no airports, no hospitals, and only one supply boat per year. Life here? Not for the faint-hearted. The island's volcano erupted in 1961, forcing the entire population to evacuate. Though they returned, the looming threat of another disaster never really fades. If you get injured or sick, help is weeks away, if it even comes at all. The landscape doesn't make things easier. Towering cliffs, rocky terrain, and unpredictable weather make getting around an extreme challenge. Unlike most islands on this list, you can technically visit, but once you're there, you might start questioning that decision real fast. Well, let's be pretty real. Why and who gonna visit this island? Hawaii or California may be better than this. Number 12. Bouvet Island. If hell froze over, it would look like Bouvet Island. Sitting in the South Atlantic, halfway between Antarctica and Africa, it's the most remote island on the planet. There are no permanent residents, no trees, no wildlife, just glaciers, relentless winds, and sheer cliffs plunging into the sea. But here's where things get creepy. In 1964, a lifeboat mysteriously appeared on Bouvet's shore. No crew, no shipwreck nearby, no explanation. The nearest land is thousands of kilometers away, and no vessels had reported missing boats. To this day, No one knows where it came from. Even in 2025, Bouvet remains mostly uncharted. The weather is so brutal that only a handful of scientists and adventurers have ever set foot here. If you got stranded on Bouvet, you wouldn't last long, and there's no one around to find you. It's a planet killer on the Earth. Number 11. Clipperton Island. Clipperton Island could have been paradise. Instead, it became a nightmare straight out of a horror movie. In the early 1900s, Mexico established a small colony on this remote coral atoll in the Pacific. At first, life was manageable. Then the supply ships stopped coming. With no way off the island, desperation set in. The colony's leader became a ruthless tyrant, controlling the last remaining food and water. He abused, starved, and murdered his own people until only a handful of women and children remained. But they weren't about to go down without a fight. The survivors killed their oppressor, holding out until an American ship rescued them. Today, Clipperton is nothing more than a wasteland of shipwrecks and rusted debris. No one wants it back, and for good reason. Some places aren't meant to be inhabited. Now let's talk about number 10, Ramree Island. If you thought shark attacks were scary, wait until you hear what happened on Ramree Island. This island off the coast of Myanmar holds the record for one of the deadliest animal attacks in history. And the culprits? Hundreds of hungry saltwater crocodiles. In 1945, during World War II, a group of Japanese soldiers retreated into the island's mangrove swamps, hoping to escape British forces. But instead of freedom, they walked straight into a death trap. The waters were infested with massive crocodiles, and as night fell, the feeding frenzy began. Survivors later described hundreds of men being dragged into the water, their screams echoing through the jungle. To this day, Ramree's swamps are still crawling with giant crocs, and few dare to enter. Was the body count exaggerated? Maybe. But if there's one thing for certain, those waters are not where you want to be. Number 9. Navassa Island. Sitting between Haiti and Jamaica, Navassa Island is an abandoned wasteland, a place with a history so dark no one wants to claim it. In the 1800s, it became home to brutal forced labor camps, where workers were sent to mine guano, yes, bird poop, under horrific conditions. Many died from exhaustion, disease, and abuse, and their suffering is said to haunt the island to this day. But that's only part of the nightmare. During the Cold War, rumors spread that Navassa was used as a chemical weapons testing site, leaving behind potential contamination. Whether or not that's true, the island remains completely uninhabited and untouched. Today, both Haiti and the US claim ownership, yet neither wants to do anything with it. Haunted? Toxic? Maybe both. Technically, you could visit, but between its grim past and eerie isolation, the real question is, why would you want to? Number 8. Okunoshima. At first glance, Okunoshima looks like the perfect whimsical getaway, an island overrun with adorable rabbits hopping up to tourists for food. But beneath the fluff, a chilling secret. During World War II, Okunoshima was erased from maps because it wasn't supposed to exist. The island housed a top-secret chemical weapons facility, producing thousands of tons of poison gas for the Japanese military. Workers there lived in secrecy, creating lethal gases that were later used in warfare. When the war ended, the facility was shut down and buried, but some say traces of poison still linger in the soil. And the rabbits? Some believe they were test subjects for chemical experiments, released when the plant was abandoned. Others say they were brought later to soften the island's sinister past. Cute? Yes. Safe? Well, not exactly. Number 7. Ilha da Queimada Grande. If you have a fear of snakes, this island is your worst nightmare. Known as Snake Island, Ilha da Queimada Grande is so lethal that the Brazilian government has banned civilians from setting foot on it. Why? Because it's home to thousands of venomous golden lancehead vipers, one of the deadliest snakes on the planet. Their venom is so powerful it can melt flesh and cause fatal organ failure within hours. And the worst part? There's nowhere safe to step. With an estimated 1 snake per square meter, even standing still is a gamble. Legend has it, the island's last human inhabitants, a lighthouse keeper and his family, were attacked in the night. By morning, they were gone. Today, only select researchers are allowed on the island, always accompanied by armed medical teams. If you ever get invited, well, just say no with politeness. Number 6. Poveglia Island. Some places are too cursed to touch, and Poveglia Island is one of them. Sitting in the Venetian lagoon, this island has a reputation so terrifying that even ghost hunters avoid it. During the Black Plague, Poveglia was used as a quarantine zone where tens of thousands of plague victims were left to rot. Mass graves, piles of burning corpses, and suffering so intense it supposedly left a mark on the land itself. Some claim that over half the island's soil is human remains. And if that wasn't dark enough, in the 1920s, a mental asylum was built on the island. Rumors spread of a sadistic doctor who conducted gruesome experiments before throwing himself from the bell tower, claiming he was tormented by spirits. Today, Poveglia is completely off limits. Even the bravest locals refuse to go near it. Fishermen say they hear whispers and screams from the ruins, and multiple buyers have tried to purchase the island, only to back out. Because let's be honest, some places should just stay abandoned. That's because of our own safety. Number 5. Hashima Island. Hashima Island was once a thriving metropolis, home to thousands of coal miners living in high-rise apartments in the middle of the sea. Nicknamed Battleship Island for its fortress-like appearance, it was one of the most densely populated places on Earth. Then, in 1974, the coal ran out, and overnight, Hashima became a ghost town. Buildings collapsed, staircases rusted, windows shattered, and nature began reclaiming the island. But the decay isn't the island's darkest secret. During World War II, forced laborers from Korea and China were brought here under brutal conditions. The mines were deadly, filled with toxic gases, collapsing tunnels, and starvation-level rations. Many never made it out alive. Today, Hashima stands as a crumbling monument to suffering, too dangerous to fully explore, but too haunted by history to forget. Number 4. North Sentinel Island. Some places aren't dangerous because of the terrain. They're dangerous because of the people. Case in point, North Sentinel Island, home to the Sentinelese, one of the last uncontacted tribes on Earth. And when I say uncontacted, I mean they make sure you never leave. The Sentinelese have spent centuries rejecting outsiders, and they're extremely effective at it. In 2006, 2 fishermen drifted too close. They were speared on sight. When authorities tried to retrieve their bodies, the tribe fired arrows at their helicopter. In 2018, an American missionary ignored all warnings and tried to make contact. He didn't make it past the shoreline. The Indian government has banned all access to the island, not just to protect visitors, but to protect the Sentinelese themselves from modern diseases. The message is clear: stay away. Because if the treacherous currents don't stop you, the Sentinelese will without any fear. Number 3. Bear Island. If you ever get shipwrecked in the Arctic, pray it's not on Bear Island, because once you're there, you're not getting out. This barren, ice-covered rock in the Barents Sea is one of the most inhospitable places on Earth. Historically, anyone unlucky enough to land here didn't last long. There's no fresh water, no food, and no rescue. Just endless ice, howling winds, and an eerie silence. Even the name is misleading. There are no bears, just the ghosts of past tragedies. And then there's the real mystery. In 2009, a Russian research team reported strange lights and unusual activity near the island. Shortly after, they vanished. No wreckage, no distress signal, just gone. Today, the only sign of life is a meteorological station and the remnants of failed expeditions. If you ever find yourself on Bear Island, you won't need to worry about leaving, because you won't. Number 2. Socotra Island. If Dr. Seuss and an alien world had a baby, it would be Socotra Island. Floating in the Indian Ocean off the coast of Yemen, this place looks like it belongs in a sci-fi movie. 1/3 of its plant species exist nowhere else on Earth, including dragon's blood trees that ooze red sap and bottle-shaped plants that defy logic. But remoteness comes with a price. Socotra is notoriously difficult to reach, and when cyclones hit, there's nowhere to run. The island's coastline is littered with shipwrecks, and old legends tell of sailors who went mad trying to escape. Even today, in 2025, huge sections of Socotra remain unexplored. Scientists say there's nothing sinister going on, but let's be real, we don't know everything. With its alien landscapes and eerie isolation, one has to wonder, what else is hiding on Socotra? Well, let us know in the comments below. Number 1. Isla Bermeja. Isla Bermeja is the island that vanished without a trace. For centuries, Spanish sailors mapped it, documented it, and used it as a landmark in the Gulf of Mexico. And then, it disappeared. By the 20th century, Isla Bermeja was nowhere to be found. Modern satellites, sonar scans, and deep-sea explorations have turned up nothing. So what happened? Was it swallowed by the sea? Destroyed by an earthquake? Or, if you lean into conspiracy theories, was it erased on purpose? Some believe governments covered it up to redraw maritime borders and hide valuable oil reserves. Others argue that it never existed to begin with, just a cartographer's mistake that lasted for centuries. Even in 2025, Isla Bermeja remains a modern-day Atlantis, a ghost island that refuses to be found. Was it lost to nature or wiped off the map? If you found this video interesting, please like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.